Welcome, everyone. I'm Justin Paperny, and I'm just so incredibly grateful that you're on this channel and you continue to return. To those of you who are new, welcome. I'm so grateful you allow our team to educate and prepare you for this incredibly difficult experience. Even though I'm 12 years removed from my prison term, I can vividly remember what it's like to go through it, the anxiety and stress. And that's why I want to continue to provide so much value. So again, before I get into this video, danger, avoid this federal prison trap, I just want to thank you for letting us help you. Now, back to the topic of this video and avoiding this federal prison trap. A lot of traps in prison are pretty obvious. Tattooing, using an iPhone, escaping. Those things are really, really obvious. What I want to talk about today is a little bit more subtle or pernicious before I get into it. To the word pernicious, I was obsessed in prison with growing my vocabulary. Some guys thought I was a little nuts. In this dictionary, Michael Santos bought me. And when I was in prison with him, and he actually left me kind of a funny note 2 days before my release. I'm going to put up a note to that. I'm going to put up an image of the letter before when I edit this video. But a good word I learned in prison, pernicious. I learned the word because I was having a conversation with someone. I didn't know what the word meant, but I acted like I knew it. Have you ever done that? They say a word, I had no idea. I didn't know, but I shook my head. As soon as it was over, I went to the dictionary that Michael bought me. I looked it up. Pernicious means having a harmful effect in a gradual or subtle way. That's perfect for this video. So here's the trap. Let's talk about work on the inside. Let's talk about jobs on the inside. What is it you hope to do in federal prison? Now, I'm going to put up an image to the two jobs that I had in prison. I was an orderly, then I worked in the kitchen for the first 4 months. First tip on jobs, always do your job. Upon your surrender, there will be guys that will offer to do your job for a book of stamps or another fee. Do your job. Staff is watching. Contribute to your community of fellow felons. I beg you to always do your job. That said, it does not mean you need to do your job or find a job that's 8 or 9 or 10 hours old. So that's what I'm really going to talk about, this trap. A major trap or subtle or pernicious trap that prisoners fall into is finding a meaningless job, but they do so only because it helps them pass the time or it makes them feel like they're not in prison. So let me transition to this a bit. And I've actually written a very extensive blog at prisonerjobs.com. I encourage you to go there. And while on the site, you'll get into more detail about unicorn and meaningless jobs and working in commissary and the library, whatever it may be. So I really encourage you to go to prisonerjobs.com to read, I think, a 2,500 word article we wrote about jobs on the inside. You really want to prepare and learn. I encourage you to go to prisonerjobs.com to check it out. Now, back to this subtle or pernicious trap. If you could find a job like I did that was it was a meaningless position, 15 minutes, 30 minutes, an hour a day, it enabled me to spend the rest of my time standing in line to the chow hall, learning new words, or developing my ability to communicate and speak and write and grow my network and begin to build white collar advice that started from the first blog we wrote or I worked on from federal prison. So while you have to work, it should be as little as possible. Now, some of you may be watching this and thinking, Justin, I don't have the liberty or privilege that you had to not work as little as possible because I need the money. It's true. I was fortunate. Many of you watching this may be fortunate that in prison you can find a job where you can only make $15 a month because you get paid 15 cents an hour. Some of you watching, I know, may need a job that pays more. Maybe it's in the commissary or Unicor where you can make a couple $100s a month. My suggestion to you, if you've got to work to make more money, try to find a win-win that enables you both to make the money, but also to develop skills. So it's not 11 hours outside landscaping. And I suppose there's some value in landscaping, but not if it's only to pass the time and to not feel as if you're in federal prison. I'm just begging you. It's this trap that too many people fall into. So if you don't need to work, I really encourage that, because what happens is people come home from prison and many of them reach out to me and say, well, what do I do now? I'm home and I want to hit the ground running. And I'll say, well, what did you do on the inside? How did you serve your sentence? What did your days look like? And we try to retrace it. And in so doing, they had these huge gaps where there were periods or bouts of being unproductive. And much of that unproductivity, if that's even a word, flows from, well, I had a job for 9 or 10 hours a day just to stay busy, to help me pass the time. So try to find a win-win if you have to work. If you don't, like me, and I'm very fortunate, and I recognize, and I got to own that. If you're in a position where you can do the nominal amount of work, a meaningless job for an hour a day, or 30 minutes is what I did ultimately as an orderly the last 7 or 8 months, and enabled maximum time for introspection and thinking. Last point before I wrap up this video. Again, I really encourage everyone to go to prisonerjobs.com to learn more about jobs in prison and the specifics of what you can do, of getting into Unicor, specific stories about people who were working in food service and education. By the way, education is another great job to line up a win-win. You're working, you're educating, you're developing your communication skills, you're giving back. Education is another great win-win if you've got to work. Last tip before I wrap up this video. If you're fortunate to line up a position where it's only 30 minutes, an hour a day, and if you have the ability to not give into temptation to find a job, or this trap that is just 10 hours a day to stay busy, if you can find that ideal job because you want to work and prepare, use the time productively. Use the time to exercise, to grow your network, to write, to think. It does no good if you have found this awesome opportunity to get a job for an hour a day, and the next 9 hours are spent watching the Kardashians, Sons of Anarchy, sleeping or complaining. So if you're going to find this ideal job, don't then fall into a trap of using wasted time elsewhere. You're creating this job or locating it because you want to use that extra time to prepare to come home, to hit the ground running. And that's how I'm going to wrap up this video. So as I close, as I come back to the headline for this video, avoid this federal prison trap. Do not get sucked into or trapped into a job that's simply going to keep you busy to feel like you don't need prison. If you're one of the few people who have a job waiting for you on the other side, or massive resources, my little boy's screaming, you're in a slightly different position. You're in a different position than me, who had to find something when I came home. You're in a different position from me, who was concerned at 34 how I was going to sustain myself and grow a family. And if you're in that situation, then find a job that keeps you busy and is fun and helps the time pass by. Again, this video is specifically for people like me who really want to use their time building and growing and connecting and hitting the ground running. But I'm aware enough to recognize this won't be applicable to everyone. If it is for you, take action. Subscribe, of course, if you find value. And I'll close with how I opened. So incredibly grateful you allow our team to help and guide you through this brutal and miserable and difficult experience. And if you're going through it, just keep going. Eventually, it's going to end. I promise you someday you'll be on the other side wondering, I can't believe I'm here. I can't believe it's over, because I know what it feels like. It's easy to feel like it will never be over. It eventually does end. And I just want you to be as prepared and strong, as ready as possible to thrive for the rest of your life. So this experience turns out to be a little blip, not something that is so significant. I'm going to wrap it up. Go see my little boy. I'll be back soon. Thank you so much for your time. Bye-bye.